as everyone is filing in, I will get all of the boring stuff out of the way first. Thank you all for joining us tonight. In these very strange continuing times, everything is done on our computers, work and school still, and for you to join us for something social is much appreciated, to talk about books and celebrate authors. We appreciate it so much. For those of you who don't know, I'm a bookseller at Belmont Books, and Belmont Books is located in the greater Boston area, a little outside of Cambridge. We have a pretty robust online event schedule just because everything is digital. We have an event tomorrow for all of you thriller and mystery lovers. It's Eric Rickstad in conversation with Richard Kismer, who's going to talk about his new thriller, I'm Not Who You Think I Am. And then we have some fiction events on Thursday with Eric North in conversation, Brad Kessler. So many Erics. Brad Kessler in conversation with Catherine Bush to talk about his new novel, North. And then next week, I'm so excited, little brag about my humble pet project, is our second annual Women in Horror panel. So we're having Cassandra Kaw, whose debut horror comes out this month, Rachel Harrison, Zin E. Rocklin, and I think it's moderated by Sadie Hartman. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm so excited. And Latanya McQueen is also going to be joining us. So 4 authors, 1 moderator. It's going to be a lot of fun. For those of you who haven't done a virtual event with us tonight, I will introduce the following authors, Lana and Ashley. I will turn it over to them for some conversation, and then we will do a Q&A roughly at 7:45 Eastern time. Lana is also going to do a few card pulls from her tarot deck, which is so exciting. When it's time, I will ask people to raise their hand. There's a little button at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a hand symbol. And we'll just pick 3 of you, and Lana will pull a card for you and give you like a nice little reading. If you'd like to ask a question to Lana or Ashley, there's also the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, which looks like 2 speech bubbles. You can submit them there. And I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you happen to have a question in the chat as well, I'll be sure to catch it and flag it. So don't worry about that. So we're going to kick things off. We're going to introduce Ashley first, who is our lovely moderator. Ashley Herring Blake is the author of the young adult novels Suffer Love, How to Make a Wish, and Girl Made of Stars, and the middle grade novels Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World, The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James, and Hazel Bly in the Deep Blue Sea. Ashley is also coming out with her adult romance debut, February 22nd, 2022. So 2-2-2-2. I'm wondering if that was planned, Ashley.
Yeah, it's auspicious. Yeah.
So we hope that you will pre-order Ashley's upcoming romance novel, and we are here to celebrate the debut of Lana's adult novel, which comes out tomorrow. So I hope you have your pre-orders in. Lana is the author of 4 YA novels about modern-day witches and historical murderesses. Born in Serbia, she grew up in Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria before moving to the US, where she studied psychology and literature at Yale, law at Boston University, and publishing at Emerson College. She recently moved to Chicago with her family. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley and Lana, and I will be back in about 40 minutes.
All right. Thank you so much. We are super excited to be here. I'm happy to step in and kind of moderate things and celebrate Lana, because one of my favorite books of the year is out tomorrow. Payback's a Witch. Congratulations, Lana. We're so excited about it.
Thank you.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling the eve of launch?
I am super excited about it. It's a little weird to not be able to like freak out about it on Instagram and Facebook, because we're having this wild murky moment where we just can't do that. And of course it would coincide with I'm trying not to take it too personally, but it is.
I think it went up. I think it's back up like as of like an hour ago. Yes.
Okay, that's exciting. Yeah. Okay, well, in that case,
I was seeing some funny memes about like Twitter or Instagram, where you been, or something like that on Twitter, and I was like, okay, is it back? It must be back. And I looked, Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting. I'm sure many people had no clue what to do. I was like, where are my cat videos? Where are my cat videos?
I mean, really, it's
Yeah.
crucial. We missed out on so much quality content in the last
Right. I mean,
day. It was like almost like an itch, like, oh my gosh, what if I don't know what my friends' cats are doing for this?
right. Yes. Yes. Oh man, I don't know. Maybe it's a lesson in,
Yeah, something.
I don't know. I don't know what these days. What would it be a lesson in? But yeah. So no jitters really.
So besides that, it's super exciting. I feel like this is my
Yeah.
first like full-fledged launch in quite a while. So
Yeah.
it has that kind of fun, glittery feel. And this is the first time that I get to launch a book in my favorite month of the year. And it's
Yes.
like the exact kind of, it's almost like the perfect entree back into doing this kind of thing because I love fall so much. I love Halloween so much. This book is basically like Halloween wrapped up in a book.
It really is. It absolutely is. Yes.
I'm just very excited about all aspects of it and thrilled that it's like finally going to be out there after all of this time hoping and dreaming.
Yeah. So I'm super excited for people to read it and people that I can freak out with about it because I read it like, it was several months ago that I read it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we are both at Berkeley. So my editor asked me to read. And so I was like, you don't even have to ask me. Can I just beg you, please? Yes. And so, I got to read it early. So I was really excited. And I've just been waiting, for it.
It has felt like, and it's also, it's that weird moment because, since there are already advanced copies out there, so there's been people reading it, and it especially kicked up a little bit over the last couple of days. So it's almost felt like kind of a preview of like, oh, this is so fun. People are doing like witch hat stage photo and fun Halloweeny flat lays on Bookstagram. So it's been really cool. Do you want me to do like a little blurb about what is it about?
Yeah. Tell us what it's about, just in case anybody in the audience just wandered in because they like books.
It's Payback the Witch. It is a queer, witchy romantic comedy. And I think of it as John Tucker Must Die meets The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And it's about Emmy Harlow, who is a prodigal witch who is returning to her magical hometown of Thistle Grove after almost 10 years away, living like a completely normal, magicless life in Chicago. So now she's coming back and she needs to arbitrate a spellcasting tournament that happens once every 50 years. And her family is so magically weak that they don't compete. They just oversee the proceedings, which is such a bummer.
Which I love that about them, that the main characters are like they're not the badasses in the room.
No,
they're a little
far from. They're like, we're gonna be here taking some notes while you guys do the really cool stuff. That's what we do. We're the record keepers. But the other three witchy families compete against each other. So once she gets back to kind of discharge this final duty to her family, she finds out that the bastard warlock who broke her heart 10 years ago and effectively drove her out of town has also been busy. So he's scorned her best friend, Lyndon Thorne, and then also Talia Avramov, who is like her unrequited crush from high school, this like very dark, twisty, sexy girl that Emmy was lusting after before she left. So as one does, the three witches form a vengeance pact, and they're like, we're gonna bring that fuckboy down. It's gonna happen. We're not gonna let him win the Gauntlet of the Grove. And as they're scheming and doing all their plans together, there's a spark between Talia and Emmy, and things kind of spiral from there.
Yes, and heat up as well between the two of them.
Exactly.
Yes. So you said, we already know October is your favorite month. You love witchy things and Halloween. So John Tucker Must Die meets Sabrina. So, before this book was born, how was it born? What inspired you to write this? What like really kind of drove you to tell the story?
This one had a really specific genesis. Like a lot of the time I can't pinpoint like when did I really have the idea, but this one was very intentional. So I started thinking about it right after I finished Poison Priestess, which was the second installment in the Lady Slayers series. So that was the historical murderesses. And then once I was done with that, the next step was to edit a contemporary thriller that was also witchy and queer, because that's basically all that I write about.
It's your brand. I mean, you have a brand. You can't say that you don't.
My niche is strong. It's well defined. It is where I like to spend my time happily. So I was talking to my agent and she was like, I know you're editing this thriller and I like it, like don't get me wrong, it's great. But I keep hearing that editors really want witchy romances. And I know you wanted to do a rom-com and have been kind of looking for an angle. So why don't we brainstorm that a little bit? So I was like, sure, that sounds great. That would be really fun. And it was kind of one of those gray, bleak times. I had a really young baby. He'd had some health problems as a newborn. I was planning a big move to Chicago. And so it was just kind of a difficult, overwhelming time. And so the prospect of working on that thriller that was really kind of heavy material wasn't very appealing. So when she and I started going back and forth, one of her ideas was, what if it's John Tucker Must Die, but everyone's witches and two of the witches fall for each other? And I was like, oh, that's what it has to be.
Obviously.
Yeah, I was like, what if we did that? But we also had a spellcasting tournament and they all lived in a magical town. And it was actually 4 witchy families. So there was just this process. It was weird. Like a lot of it didn't feel like my other books. Once I knew what the seed of the idea was, it felt very organic, like almost like excavating. Like I found things exactly where I needed them. And it was really wonderful because it felt so easy and it was so much fun. It almost felt, compared to other things that I've written, it felt very effortless. So it was a beautifully joyful place to spend a lot of my time. So it was a very happy space for me.
Do you think that, and this is just a question off the top of my head, do you think that the ease of writing that has to do with like moving from YA to adult and just and like writing a rom-com and just kind of in that new space? It was fresh and compounded with, pandemic, your personal life, your child thing, just things that, do you think that it all that kind of wrapped itself around your process of writing this book to make it just like the light of your life?
It was. And it was like, obviously my child was the light of my life. I can't minimize that. But at the same time, it's like, it's hard. Yeah. Like, kind of just acknowledge that's there, but at the same time, you really need something really wonderful and pure and easy to look forward to. And I had felt I loved writing YA, but my YA always skewed adult anyway. So it was like being liberated. Like suddenly I could do these like really steamy scenes. And talk about stuff I never talked about before. It was just like, it was wonderful. It was so much fun. I had never gotten to really let loose before in that way. So to me, it felt special. And then it was also just what I wanted. I mean, my happy place all year is Halloween in October. And I started writing this book, I think it would have been February or March of 2019 or of 2020.
Yeah.
So, like as far away as you can get from that season. So I do think all of those things conspired to make it be this like perfect, welcoming space for me, like a refuge.
Yeah, because I mean, I kind of experienced the same thing. Like I'd been writing YA in middle grade for so long, and then the pandemic hit. Because I wrote Delilah in like April of 2020, and it was just like, I think compounded with like, it was the pandemic, and I just wanted something fun and fluffy, and I just got to, like you said, let loose, and I got to cuss as much as I wanted.
And you did.
And I did, and I got to write, sex scenes, and it was just, it was just really refreshing. Kind of building on top of that, was there a specific reason why you wanted to kind of dabble in adult after being in YA for so long? Like you said, a lot of your themes kind of usually skewed adult, but is there, other than just kind of wanting to let loose, is there another pull towards that? Or
really mostly that I just wanted to lean into all the things that I had already been exploring and kind of skirting around in adult and young adult. I wanted to do everything that I was already doing in young adult, but do it more, like not feel like any of those constraints, especially because even in my young adult books, I typically tended to have queer love stories. So I really wanted that to be center stage. And I felt like I couldn't do it the kind of like juicy justice that I wanted to have while I was still in YA. So I think that was definitely part of it. And it just felt like a more comfortable fit for what I wanted writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So in the book, like I think with any book like this, your readers are really, readers are really hoping for a strong sense of place, and I think you really accomplished that. Like Thistle Grove, which is the name of the town, is just so rich and vibrant with, just what the families and how they've kind of shaped the town, and in this tournament that goes on. So what was your inspiration for that? Was Thistle Grove based on a real place, or did you pull from a lot of different inspirations?
It was almost, I mean, I can't say completely because it's not a one-to-one, but I lived near Salem, Massachusetts, like
okay,
the town for 2 years, and I got to do all the really fun, campy, like just like incredibly both mystical and like tongue-in-cheek things that town does so well. So I was thinking, like, what if we could have that kind of town, but it was in Illinois. It wasn't actually Salem. I didn't want it to be a real town.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be the ultimate kind of like the paragon of that kind of town, like the Yankee Candle Halloween, but in an invented town where I got to control everything about it and make it absolutely like the pinnacle of all things, seasonal.
Yeah.
So there was that influence. And then I also had pretty specific influences for the families. That was one of the first things I nailed down once I knew there would be 4 families. I needed to understand kind of what were their domains, or what I call domains in the book, sort of like their estates, the houses and the holdings that they had. And then I also wanted a separate kind of attention to be paid to their business interests, like their holdings that each family had. So I had specific inspirations for all of those, and I'm happy to talk about those if you'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of interested in, I didn't know how to say that word. Domains.
I just think it looks cool. I'm pretty sure. I hope that it's actually pronounced domain, because I think it is, but I'm not 100%. Yeah, the domains are for the Harlows, and I tried to fit them to kind of the family majors too. The Harlows, who are the most low-key family, they just live in a regular colonial. It's pretty. It's like roomy, but it's not anything very special. And then the Abramoves live in this rambling, huge, very haunted Victorian Gothic-y place.
Which I love. And that's Talia, the love interest.
Talia.
And so I just loved every scene where they were like in her bedroom. I was like, I want her bedroom.
Like, it's creepy, but it's beautiful.
But it's awesome and lovely and like creepy beautiful, which is like the best kind of beautiful.
It is. I agree. And I think that for there, I really borrowed from Instagram, because there's so many of those like witch aesthetics houses. It's always like these massive Victorians with all these widow's walks and crazy turrets and weather vanes and weird shapes. And they're usually painted black, and the whole thing is like super gloomy, but very attractive. So I was thinking of something like that for the Bitters, which is where the Abramoves live. And then, of course, the Thorns, who are the green magicians, and the Healers had to live in an orchard. So they have like a lovely kind of hobbit hole, but very large within their orchard. And the Blackmores, who everybody loves to hate, who are the illusionists and the elementalists and the wealthiest family. They have Tentacle, which is part of their super pretentiousness. Everything that they do has to goes back to King Arthur myths. And it also is vaguely Downton Abbey-esque, because they feel like they have to be fancy in a particular way all the time.
Right.
But at the same time, they own Castle Camelot, which is like a huge cross between a medieval manor and a Renaissance fair. Which
I just found so intriguing. I was just like, it was like this witchy country fair dropped into the middle of the book, which, sometimes you'd be like, would that work? But it totally worked, because it just like went with like kind of their need for success in all areas, and like, driving the economy and in the town, and it just worked. It was great.
And it is certainly, it's like counterintuitive in a way, because you'd think that they would be trying to be classy, but they were like, what's going to really work? What do people want to do when they go to Halloween town? Like, they want to do cosplay, and they want to see casting, and they want to see all of, everything brought to the campiest extreme. Plus, it's like, I would love to go to Castle Camelot. Like, as much as I make them, that's probably where I'd go. Like, I would want to go to the Arcane Emporium, which is the like witchy Walmart occult mega store that the Abramoves own. And they have a house that sort of draws on like those big immersive theater experiences like Sleep No More in New York. But I would probably end up in Castle Camelot, because I couldn't resist.
Yeah, it totally sounds awesome. I mean, I would totally go there. I'd pay for that. So I mean, well done, Blackmores. Yes. Okay, so your agent, you got this idea from kind of you and your agent brainstorming, and your agent even said, everybody's looking for a witchy rom-com. Like, why do you think that is? Like, why are we all so obsessed lately? It seems like this is kind of a not new, I mean, it's always been around, but it's resurged, this fascination with the occult and just wanting witchy rom-coms. We've got the resurgence of Sabrina. We got the X-Hex that just came out. We've got multiple other books that deal with some kind of witchy, there's cozy mysteries that are witchy. There's, it's just witchy everywhere. So why do we love it so much?
I feel like the witch revolution has been building, and social media has given it such a great platform. I've seen a lot of, I almost want to call them millennial witch influencers on Instagram. I follow a number of them, and they're just very compelling presences because they do what everyone else does, which is they take beautiful photos, but they also are very much about like harness your power. That's what it means to be a witchy person. You can seize your power. You can feel like someone who can make a difference or create the life that you want. And there's that not just self-actualization, but almost like you're stepping into a powerful and not passive role, which I think is really attractive to women and femme-presenting people, just anyone who feels like they've been vulnerable and weak their whole life, and suddenly they have this conduit to, like, the universe, something that can allow them to shape their life as they want it. So I think that's very seductive, and I think largely in a healthy way. I mean, I certainly respond to it. A lot of people do. And then there's like a built-in sense of community because there's covens, there's, your witch folks and your witch sisters and people who you connect with over like, oh, we can talk about astrology or the zodiac or crystals. So it's like a real built-in community. And then it's also just like sexy. Like there's a certain kind of, I don't know that's not been the case. Like the witch archetype did not used to be sexy, and I think now it is. So I think that's like the trifecta where you're like, oh, this makes me feel attractive. It makes me feel powerful, supported, attractive, and it's it's like a wonderful avenue towards all those things that maybe I feel like are missing in my life. So I get the pull.
I mean, I would totally agree with all that. Like I grew up in a pretty conservative religious atmosphere that I abandoned in not until like my mid-20s. And I think that like the witchy aspect of things, or like kind of that witchy culture that, we're kind of seeing resurge right now, just like you said, it just like gives us something that feels bigger than just us, but at the same time it is us, which I think is like really refreshing, especially coming from, a place where women and queer people were either excluded, like, religiously, Christianity specific, that religion I'm speaking of, or, made to feel weak or powerless for so long, and then, you kind of step into this new kind of like, oh, tarot cards, where I'm like reading about my own, like, I'm not relying on some kind of power that's outside of me, but yet it feels bigger than me at the same time, and I think that that's, like you said, is really seductive and empowering, just to kind of take control over some of that. But at the same time, it feels like it's feeding you as well, at the same time. Absolutely. I love that. So sorry, I gotta get my phone unlocked here for my notes. So John Tucker Must Die. Okay, so this book takes on, obviously, toxic masculinity, cis white male privilege. Like, what really drove you to have that? Like, I know your agent kind of said, what about John Tucker Must Die? And let's do this. And then you kind of started brainstorming that together. But what really made you cling to that idea of a vengeance pact? We're taking down this asshole. We as women and queer people, we are going to get this job done, and we're not going to let this system, at least in this specific situation, win. Like, so what drove you, kind of, other than just being a queer woman in the world?
Right, exactly. That's probably
other than that.
It's probably
enough,
probably. I mean, I feel like everyone, I think part of the reason that people respond positively to Payback's a Witch is because it just strikes that deep note of like, tear that dude down, because we've all known that guy. Like we all, either we've known him personally, or he's been our boss, or he's been like someone's toxic friend or someone's toxic ex. Like I feel like we're surrounded by that kind of person, and typically they tend to wield the power. And so bringing them down is a unique kind of satisfying. It's just like the best kind of schadenfreude. Like you just look at this person and you're like, man, your face is in need of a fist. Like I would just love to do whatever I can to grind you down. I did want to, you know, there was like the kind of delicate balance where Gareth, I had to show why were these people even getting involved with him if he was sitting there, you know, being just generally worthless and an obvious bastard in every way. Why would these smart women have even gotten entangled with him in the first place? So there had to be that moment of reckoning of like, what is it about that kind of individual that draws you in and then eventually makes you like repulsed or angry or even like driven to hatred. So I think some of it was probably personal experience, because like I said, we all have it. And some of it is just like, I don't know, probably the last 4 years. And just
like, you know, I feel like we've kind of, you know, I there's that meme that says like, behold the field where I lay my fucks, behold it is barren. And I just feel like we're kind of all there at this point. It's like, well, I mean, I have none left, so why not just yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think, you know, and you know, I think a lot of times, not a lot of times, but sometimes we have books like that we feel like are going to tackle a dude like this, a cis male guy like this, white guy like this. And then there ends up being some kind of
redemption,
like little redemption. And I'm, you know, who hurt you, you know, and it's like, no, I don't care who hurt you. Okay, dude, you just need to go. And I just love that, you know, you didn't care who hurt him. Like we you know,
play with care. That's true. No.
Yeah.
He didn't get his moment. We do have an way down the line in the third book. It's going to be about his sister, actually.
Okay.
So we'll get to see a slightly different perspective, but I don't plan to redeem him then either.
Yeah. Hey, you know, but I think that will be really fascinating though, to see like a woman who's grown up alongside him and how that's like, you know, because, you know, like, unfortunately he isn't some evil being. He is just the product of our society. And I think that like what you pointed out about how, you know, like why were so many people drawn to him, to be in relationships with him or put up with his BS or whatever it might be, like, and I think that's a really complicated question, you know, just because of the system we live in and what, you know, internalized misogyny and, you know, just all of that. Like, and I'm raising two boys right now, and so it's like trying to explain these certain things to them about feminism and sexism and misogyny. You know, it's complicated, you know, and it's like it's hard to explain sometimes, like why, you know, these things keep happening, and like it's just like, and it's the same thing with like systemic racism when I'm trying to explain that to them.
With it? Yeah, exactly.
Why isn't this over? Or even homophobia and systemic, you know, generational poverty and all these kinds of things. It's like, well, you know, they ask me questions sometimes. It's like, well, it's really complicated, and then I try my best to kind of put it into terms where they can wrap their brains around them, which they can. I mean, we underestimate kids.
As a middle grade author who deals with a lot of this stuff, which is amazing. I think that's really, like, I feel like we've started dealing with really sensitive, complicated issues younger and younger. But I think many kids, if not most kids, are entirely equipped to understand. So
they are.
Absolutely. For doing that.
But like, you know, I think it is complicated, and I think in Payback the Witch, you know, it's a rom-com, and it's mostly, you know, kind of light and fun, but you know, my favorite kinds of rom-coms obviously are those that like really kind of touch on those really deep heart issues, or societal issues, and I think you did that really well with Blackmore, and how everybody kind of reacted with him, and then how he eventually went down. So yeah, love it. All right, so Emmy and Talia. They're both bi, right?
Yes, they are. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, I think according to like modern parlance, I'm not 100% clear on the distinction between bi plus and pansexual. I think both of them could probably fit within either, even though they both self-identify as bi. I've always written queer characters. I'm a queer person. So it was one of those things where, one, it was baked into the premise. Like, I needed them to have a man in common, but I needed them to fall for each other. And I also needed them to have a personal history, which is that, you know, Emmy had this crush on Talia back in high school and was like, I have no chance with that girl. She's like the hottest and the broodiest and just like dark.
And she is
really hot.
She can step on me. I'm just saying.
I had a whole thing about where I was trying to do a mood board, like who was my aesthetic for her, and it was some kind of like magical mesh between Kate Siegel and Ruby Rose, who are not you would naturally, but I feel like once you retell, you're like, okay, I can sort of see like Kate Haunting of Hill House.
Yes.
General,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly that
Perfect.
vibe. I was like, that's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, you know, I need them to be bi. I want them to be bi. It was always going to be a queer romance. And then it also presented me with a chance to just show the fact that being bi doesn't mean, okay, well, you're strictly down the middle. That's what that means. You're 50-50. Like, that's the only way you're going to be. And if you're not, then you're not really bi. You're either like a dabbler or secretly gay. So I just wanted to show that with the two of them, I had a chance to express that kind of range that bi people have. So I thought it was just an easy kind of way to explore more of that dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we do have a lot, I think adult still has some catching up to do in terms of queer lit, in terms of where kid lit is. Like kid lit, not that I think we're ever there. Like, I think we always need probably more everywhere, but an adult, I've seen more and more deals and more, and there's so much great self-pub out there. Absolutely not to forget self-pub stuff, because there's so much great queer stuff out there for self-pub. You know, and I think we're starting, like, traditional publishing too is starting to kind of hopefully catch up, you know. But
it's gaining steam for sure. You can see that from all the deal announcements and things. So hopefully
the more we can get out there, the better.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting question. I heard this question from at an event forever ago. It was like years and years and years ago. And I believe the event was a Victoria Schwab event. So I feel like this question came from Victoria Schwab. So credit to Victoria Schwab. But she said that, and then she heard it from someone else, which I can't remember who that was, or maybe she came up with it. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. She said that authors, especially, you know, authors who've written multiple books and have that experience behind them, are constantly trying to answer a question, like one or maybe two questions, I don't know, about life, about themselves, you know. And I guess that kind of what you can knock that down to is kind of a theme, you know, like aside from, oh, there's my child. Hi.
There he went.
That's my 12-year-old. You know, so aside from like kind of your brand of like witchy and queer, like, you know, kind of more on the emotional level of your characters' journeys and kind of the kind of characters you are drawn to when you create, like, what question do you think you are trying to answer with each book?
That's a super interesting one. I've not heard that one before. It does sound like a Victoria Schwab question. That tracks. Probably something like, who am I supposed to be as defined by myself, as opposed to who other people think I'm supposed to be, who does my family think I'm supposed to be, who does, you know, the authority figures around me, the town that I grew up in, my lovers, you know, the people, even my friends. Who am I if I am freed from, and even who am I supposed to be freed from my own preconceptions about who I'm supposed to be, which is kind of what Emmy has to wade through, because she thinks that she's really becoming empowered, and that cutting ties to Thistle Grove is the way to do it. And then slowly over the course of the book, she comes to sort of reconsider and think, you know, maybe I was reacting in a way that was counter to my interests, and maybe I was, you know, maybe I wasn't taking into account all of the things that are incredibly positive and that I loved about being here and that I still love. So I think that's probably what it is when I think to all of the other books that I've written. It's always a matter of discovering your identity and your power, but divorced from expectations, placed on you by other people and effectively by yourself, because the most crippling ones, the most difficult ones are always the ones that you project on yourself. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to think about it more. Off the top of my head, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds about right. Like, I mean, I've read your other books too, and it's, you know, I can definitely see that running through. I mean, you know, and like, I think in a lot, I mean, I just feel like this, especially women write about, you know, and queer people, and marginalized people. I think identity is constantly a theme, you know, because
unsurprisingly,
not surprisingly, because we, you know, and on obviously intersectionally and on very different levels and different experiences based on your identity, but, you know, are constantly being told that there's something about us that isn't quite acceptable in society, you know, or could be better, or could be different, or, you know. So I think that authors, you know, who are queer, or authors of color, or women, you know, that they explore those themes feels pretty on par, you know, with what I would expect we're probably thinking about a lot, you know. So you mentioned a third book. So as we kind of wrap up the deep questions about Payback, so which, can you tell us anything about what's coming next in that world?
Sure. So the second book is going to be called From Bad to Cursed. So we're going to continue with the high level punning. And I'm going to do a cover reveal actually next week. But for subscribers to my newsletter, they get to have a sneak peek of it tomorrow. So if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, you should totally do that, because you get to see it. It's a beautiful cover. I'm really excited about it. I feel like it very much captures the spirit of the story. And it's about, because I had to do this. The main character is Issa Avramov, who is Talia's younger sister.
Okay, yeah.
The love interest is Rowan Thorne, who is Lyndon's twin brother.
Yes. Oh, he's so sweet.
He's wonderful, and she is very dark and twisty in a very different way than Talia is, but she has a very complicated journey. So the two of them have been kind of arch nemesis for a long time, due to some like kind of hilarious personal drama, and they're thrown together because there's a dread curse that's leveled against the Thorne family, and the immediate suspects are Abramovs. So it's kind of like the enemies to lovers and the reluctant partners tropes put together. My favorite things. So along the way they discover that maybe, you know, they have the wrong idea about the other person.
Oh yes, as one does.
As one does, exactly. So I'm really excited about it. It was wonderful. It was like because, you know, with Payback, I had just kind of gotten my feet wet and I was exploring the world, and I knew I wanted to write more about the Abramovs specifically. So I was like, you know, let's just go harder. We're gonna go harder on the music. We're gonna go like harder on the sexy times. It's all just up a little bit more. So hopefully that's fine with me.
Oh, I think that's going to be just fine. I'm excited to read that. So speaking of reading, you what?
It is not quite in your inbox yet, but it is headed your way quite soon.
Yes. Okay. Yes. All right. Here for that. All right. Well, speaking of reading, what are you currently reading? Some little lightning round questions here for you.
I just finished Jay Kristoff's new fantasy, the first one in a new series called Empire of the Vampire. And I really enjoyed his last trilogy. Wonderful fantasy, super queer, very fun. But the book that I'm telling everyone about and just becoming like semi-obnoxious about is called The Actual Star by Monica Byrne. It's like a sci-fi. I think it's comped as Cloud Atlas meets the Earthseed series.
Oh, okay.
Mind-blowing. Like, it's one of those books that gives you chills like every third page, and it feels so true, and it's intellectually challenging, but it's not purposely obscure or anything like that. It's so beautiful. It's just like one of those like once in a generation reads. I feel like she's gonna get all kinds of amazing press for it. And then before that, I also read Meet Me in Another Life, which was wonderful. That was also really, really beautiful. So again, science fiction, genre bending. And then I read your book, which is the most beautiful. I love Delilah so much. So those are my three that I'm just pushing everywhere because I think everyone should read them and they're just gorgeous.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'll definitely have to check out those other ones.
I think you would. I think you would enjoy both of them. But Actual Star is like, it's crazy. It's like, you know, when you read a book sometimes and you're like, wow, like this person is an actual genius. How did she do this? And it's really one of those books, and I loved every part of it.
All right. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. Okay. Awesome. All right. So a couple more lightning round. Favorite TV
No,
show?
are you ready? We can switch
Oh,
actually.
sure.
Yeah.
We can go.
Oh yeah, let's do
sure.
it. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
have
go for it.
already a few questions pending, so that is great. And as a reminder, Lana is going to be doing a little tarot reading for 3 attendees. So if you'd like to be considered, just use the little raise hand function on the bottom. You don't have to be on camera. You don't have to turn your audio on. Pretty low key, so you don't have to worry about any of those things if you've got your PJs or your ugly, ratty winter robe out like I do, that I am always in. We will kick it off with Jilly's question. Lana, which magical strength that you've split across the 4 houses do you feel the most personal affinity with?
Ooh, it's like on the one hand, it's like probably if I had an affinity, it would have to be something boring and mundane, like keeping my tea at the perfect temperature, like the Harlows do, because I hate it. There's like that one golden moment where your tea is perfect and then it's not anymore. But if I got the one that I wanted, it would definitely be necromancy of some sort. So like in my heart, I'm an Evermov, but in reality, I'm a Harlow.
Do you forget your tea a lot? I do that too. Like I'll
Yeah.
wait for it to cool down, and then an hour later, I'm like, I forgot
Yeah.
that I had tea.
Yep. Been there. Frequent issue.
Actually, what do you think? What do you think your magical affinity would be?
I think that I'm probably like, honestly, exactly like Lana. Like I feel like I'm probably really have high aspirations to do like the coolest, twistiest, darkest kind of stuff, but yet when in reality I'm like, do I really want to go out and run those errands today? No, I'm just gonna lay on my couch. So I feel like I'm probably gonna end up being a Harlow because
Good.
they're just kind of, they're just holding things together, doing the practical things.
But then still waters run
yeah.
deep with them. No spoilers, but they have those, hidden facets.
They do. So yes. Yeah. So yeah, probably the same.
I do
honestly.
think if people could use magic, 90% of it would be like, God, I don't feel like getting up and getting a glass of water.
Right.
Just be like
grocery shop for me. Brush my teeth for me. Just like let them
just lay there while the toothbrush.
Exactly.
Although now toothbrushes these days pretty much do that. You just have to hold it, but
just hold it.
But I don't even want to hold it.
But I don't even
want to
hold
do that effort.
Let me lay there.
There's too much standing involved with brushing.
Yeah, like for 2 whole minutes. I mean, come on.
Bode well for our witchiness. We're like, we just really need a spell for brushing our teeth. Out of everything.
The coolest magic
No.
that we do. Yes.
Maddie asks, what pandemic hobbies would Talia and Emmy have taken up?
Oh, so Talia for sure is a baker. Talia probably has like a sourdough starter that she like had named.
She named it.
Yeah. It's probably the ghost of a sourdough starter. Like her sourdough starter died and she had to bring it back. And so now this is, and then she gets into hijinks like, well, what happens if you have like a reanimated sourdough loaf instead of the original one? So she is for sure a baker. And then I feel like Emmy would have gotten really deep into some sort of like very finicky but demanding hobby. Like maybe she's like, I'm going to learn how to make lace or do something that like nobody really does, but that requires a lot of focus and is very detail oriented since she's like such a type A person. But then she also
together like miniatures, like
exactly, or something like that. She also is like, she loves roller derby. So I'm like, what is your, I guess you could do like, maybe she's like doing a lot of roller skating inside her house.
A lot of people did pick up roller skating.
That's why I feel like I saw a lot of that on Instagram. So maybe that's what she did. She like started becoming a roller skating influencer the pandemic times.
Samantha asks, would Talia and Emmy dress up for Halloween? And if so, what would they be?
Oh my gosh, this is a really tough one. I mean, Talia is constantly doing her like flowy costumes. Maybe they would definitely, because they're the kind of like obnoxiously high octane into each other couple, so they would certainly be matching as something. So maybe just to like give a nod to past witch inspiration, maybe they could go as Willow and Tara from Buffy, since those are the original, some of the original queer witches. I'm not sure it would be who, but I feel like that would be great. Or
with like the flowy aspect, I just like picture them recreating like the Fleetwood Mac like Rumors album cover.
Or that.
That would be amazing.
That works out.
Claire asks, with the exception of Morty and Talia's off-screen ex, non-witches don't play an active role in the story. Did you think about featuring normies more, and why focus solely on a magical community?
I do think about normies, and that is going to come up as a major theme in book 3. The reason that there wasn't as much normie interaction in this book was because there was a lot of world building involved, and the characters who kind of took center stage had to be witches due to the plot. So there just wasn't as much space to be exploring. Plus, I feel like there's a lot of kind of fraught stuff going on here because you have this magical town that an entire large portion of the population doesn't even know is genuinely magical. So there's like moral stuff to debate there, a lot of more interesting issues than I felt had that Payback had room for. So I was like, that's going to be tabled for down the line, and a lot of that I think is going to come up in book number 3. So it was mostly just the constraints of like, I'm establishing a magical town. There's a spellcasting tournament. The witches get center stage now, but they're definitely not going to keep it.
All right. Now, Lana, are you ready? Are you ready for
Yeah,
your
are we
cards?
doing
Okay.
it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We have 3 volunteers, so this is perfect.
Awesome.
So the first one is going to be Jilly, and if you want to give your instructions.
Yeah, so Jilly, can you please think of your question? You don't have to do anything else, and I'm just going to think about your name while I do this. So I'm going to use the Wild Unknown deck. This guy, what kind of book? It's really beautiful. It doesn't actually use any of the traditional occult imagery, but I really enjoy the artist's take on the major and minor arcana. They're really detailed, and there's a lot of really lovely and uncanny wildlife pictured. So I've never seen a deck like this before. And I really also like her particular explanations of each card are very succinct and kind of tough lovey in a way that I appreciate. So I tend to read her descriptions of each card. So you have, oh, this is a beautiful one. The 2 of Pentacles. So pentacles are typically this material suit. It's prosperity, money, home, career, like all of your kind of financial concerns. And let's see what she has to say specifically about the 2. Oh, so the 2 of Pentacles is a card of balance and change, inevitable change. Since it relates to earthly possessions, this usually means a new job or financial situation or a move. Hey, Jilly, I hope you like this one. It seems incredibly apt. Even if you fear this change, it needs to happen. It might even be fun. Face it with the grace of a newly formed butterfly, a world of possibilities balanced upon your delicate wings.
Jilly said she loved this one. She's totally into it.
Yeah, no, this was, because Jilly and I know each other. This is a wonderful card for her, and I'm very pleased that this was the first pull because it bodes very well for the rest of them. So thank you, Jilly.
So your next person is Allison.
Allison, okay. All right. Hi, Allison. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Not one you see a lot, but we're gonna go with it because there's some interesting connotations. You got a major arcana, one of the slightly scary ones, but that's okay because scary ones are sometimes good. We got the Devil for you, which is a card that I used to get all the time, and I got a lot of really good readings out of. So let's see exactly what we can. So the Devil has to do with dealing with negativity. It may feel frightening, but it actually carries an urgent message and must be interpreted with total honesty. So typically, it can indicate a difficult relationship with a person or a substance. I'm assuming probably in this case, it's a person. If you identify this dependency and how it's holding you back, you are able to make a conscious decision to change. So I assume, as is often the case for me, this card appears whenever you're entangled with somebody else in a difficult, unhealthy way, and you have to just make a decision to be like, you know what, I'm going to turn my back on this in a productive way and figure out what the next step is. So I'm hoping that's helpful, because that card used to scare me a lot, but now I like seeing it because it's helpful.
Speaking of like that card, have you ever seen the movie The Witch at all?
Yes, I actually didn't finish it because it like was incredibly terrifying. So, and there was, I think, if it's the one that I was thinking of, is there a baby in the beginning, right? Is that the one where the baby gets abducted in the very beginning?
Yes.
Yeah, I had to nope out of that one really quickly. It was right after my baby was born, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, no, that's all right. So I'm gonna go back to it because people love it, but I just couldn't.
Very good. No, but like for spooky season, so like a black ram plays a big part of the movie. For spooky season, I'm getting a black ram tattoo at the end of the month.
Oh, wow.
And then going to a Halloween wedding. So very
nice.
Spooky season. I'm very excited. So the last reading is going to be for Samantha.
Samantha, okay. Hi, Samantha. Oh, so this is our first cup suit. So it's the 3 of cups. Cups are the emotion suit. So typically that has to do with matters of the heart. And I think I actually know this one. The 3 of cups, if I remember right, is a card of friendship. A really nice one. Let's see if I'm remember. Yes. So 3 of cups is friendship, joy, and bounty. It's a lovely card. It foresees you in the company of amazing friends, creating memories together. They are not any old friends. They're people with whom you feel a rare connection, with whom you feel truly yourself. Enjoy each minute of their company. It can also indicate an upcoming celebration. Love abounds. So it's a happy, happy card. I generally really like the cup suit because I'm all about the emotions, even though technically I should be one. It's a fire sign, but I'm not. It's always cups for me. So that's a nice card. I hope you like it.
3 great readings. Thank you so much, Lana. So as we wrap up the event for tonight, I want to thank everybody for coming, especially Ashley and Lana and everyone in the audience. If you came in late, don't worry. We usually record these events. So within the next, I think, 2 to 3 days, it will be up on our YouTube channel, which is belmontbooks.com. I'm going to put a link in the chat one last time if you'd like to purchase Lana or Ashley's book or both. If you're local to the Boston area, we do offer contactless curbside pickup, but we are also open for browsing. We also have a lovely selection of tarot cards as well, if you'd like to do your own readings.
Confirm.
Yeah, but if you're not local, we do ship throughout the US, so you're welcome to have your book shipped to you or support your own local indie. I'm sure they would also love to stay afloat during the holidays, so just shop local this season. Shop early this season because shipping is all sorts of messed up, so buy early, buy local.
Pre-order,
yes. Yeah. Pre-order your books so we know how many to have on hand. That would all be helpful. And thank you once again to Lana and Ashley.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for the wonderful
Thank you, Lana.
Amanda.
For having us.
We're
and congratulations.
Ready for book 2. Everyone subscribe to Lana's newsletter for the cover reveal soon.
You can find it on the website, on my website, or on Instagram once that's a thing again. It's in my link, but definitely on the website. It's not going to have gone anywhere, I hope.
Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
All right, thanks.
Good night.
Bye.